You are listening to the World Sports Show on WPPM-LP Philadelphia. Soccer-based sports talk covering local, nation, and global soccer. Broadcasting from the Philly Cam studio in Center City, Philadelphia on 106.5 FM.
And welcome to World Sports Show. Charlie Flo here, John DeCriscio. We are on WPPM LP Philadelphia over the internet at phillycam.org, radio/listen. Welcome everybody to the show. Again, Charlie Flo, John DeCriscio. It is May the 1st, 2017. Definitely the beginning of, I guess, spring/summer, right on the cusp of summer. Beautiful weather out there. Beautiful weather to talk about the beautiful game.
Man, threw that right at me. I'm trying to get my microphone volume set.
Yeah.
And we're good to go.
Yeah.
Beautiful weather.
Yeah, we have this is the best time, I think, in the soccer world because you've got Champions League going on. You've got all the European leagues right in the thick of it. MLS is a good couple months in. NWSL is 3 weeks in. But let's start with the top news. NWSL wrapped up week 3. North Carolina improved to 3-0 on the season by beating Orlando by a score of 3-1. Dash edged the Spirit, score 1-0. Portland beat Chicago 1-0. Boston put a spanking on Seattle with a score of 3-0. Sky Blue opened up their home opener with a 1-0 win over Kansas City. Local team Philadelphia traveled out to the LA Galaxy in Carson, California, and they drew 0-0 on the road. And another big game, Red Bulls made a big comeback on DC United made a comeback on Atlanta. So definitely an exciting weekend.
Former Philadelphia Union great Sebastian Letou getting the third goal in the game.
Yeah, good to see him out there. It's one of those athletes that plays on a close rival. You know, DC United and Red Bulls are probably the biggest rivals for Philadelphia Union, but that's a guy that kind of put the franchise on the map, and what he did, and when he put really Philly on the map, was with that home opener at the Link when he put in 3 goals against DC United.
Sure, he did put the franchise on their back for a couple years, and it's interesting. Not too many sports teams in the city can say that they have their, I'd say, top all-time player play for both rival teams. Pretty interesting.
This is true. People forget after he left and went to Vancouver, he went over to Red Bull, and that didn't really work out too well. He was having a hard time even finding the field, but good for Letou. He's always a guy that'll have a special place in every Philadelphian's heart. I'm trying to think of other famous athletes in the Philadelphia area that could return, and you don't boo them because they left kind of out of their control. It wasn't on their terms. They kind of just left and they were out of the controls, and that happens. I mean, the first time he got traded, it was a very bitter thing with the whole Novak thing and a lot of tension when he got traded the first time.
Right, when you got a player who's the George Washington on the Mount Rushmore of the team.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard. I mean, it's going to take a while for even, I'd say to, maybe third and fourth player to be on the Mount Rushmore of the team.
Yeah.
Let alone 1 and 2. And
that's the thing now is we'll probably break it down a little later on the show. We'll break down our Union talk of, what their identity is now. We've seen a lot of changing of the guard and a lot of the guys that helped build the franchise. Some are still in the league and some we're seeing, play here. Just a couple weeks ago, we saw Amobi Okugo come and plays for Portland now. So it's a lot of, like I said, changing the guards, a lot of new faces, and but the expectations, I think, are greater. The first couple years, it was, okay, have a winning record at home, you might get into playoffs. And that's kind of what they did to get in their first playoffs. Their second year of existence is win at home, get points at home. But now it's one of the things where they're lucky if they can get a point.
Right. That's not a bad thing for a season ticket holder.
Nah, dude.
For all their wins at home,
Because I believe that their first 2 years, they had really had a winning record at home. I mean, they did a decent job their first year. Everybody understands expectations of a first-year team, an expansion team, and they had no massive marquee signing, unlike like Orlando, Atlanta, Minnesota. A lot of these newer expansion teams are starting to sign marquee players before they even kick off.
Right. Well, just to go back on a little bit, the designated player and the whole allocated money and all these new, every year it's something comes in, some kind of rule or loophole where the teams got the money are going to get these world-class, franchise players. But the union just so happened to come at a time where it was just being developed and, it was the MLS is really taking form big time. And, these players are, the MLS was attracting older players at the time who were just done their international career, Germany and Spain, getting these top players. So now it's time, Man,
they're still attracting those same type of players.
Oh, sure.
But I think they're getting them in their early 30s instead of that mid-30s, late 30s. You're starting to see guys like Pirlo come in, and he is one of the guys in his late 30s. It's a bad example. But bringing in guys like that, just like Schweinsteiger, still got a lot in his tank.
Yeah, especially for the MLS compared to the wear and tear of Bundesliga. You got Champions League, you got World Cup. His year is
those guys are playing 50-plus games a year.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's the one thing that not to knock Philadelphia, but that is one thing I am going to semi-knock Philadelphia for. They haven't really gotten that big name. I think the biggest name that really turned some heads was a player that was good in his youth, Freddie Adu. And that was one of the only big names, but he never did anything on a domestic side. And I think everybody got excited how much he did on the youth side for America. But really, you think about it, he never did anything as a senior player.
Well, he was a huge name, but,
Yeah.
It's like putting a name on,
the name weighs more than the player.
Yeah, you're right about that.
He ain't that heavy of a guy.
No. Last year, Tranquillo Barnetta, this Swiss player, very nice player, opted out for this year to go back to his home country and play. It was a very nice signing. He wasn't a huge money deal, but he came in and fitted nicely with the club and left. That was tough to fit, get the team back. But it's tough for a team like the Union to throw a lot of money at a designated player. They're not a high market team or a high team that has that huge payroll, that huge cash. So sponsors talk.
This is true. So we've been seeing a lot of that improvement. It's a stadium and making it, the atmosphere down there is one thing that they've done, to improve the experience, putting in that beer garden up top, things like that, and just trying to entice the experience. But at the end of the day, if you're winning, fans could care less about the extracurricular activities.
Yeah, you're right. But it's
like look. For example, Philadelphia has been known for having dumpy stadiums. Prior to all the newer stadiums in the past couple of years, we've had some dumps in Philadelphia, but it didn't matter. It's like if you're winning, you could play in a parking lot for all I care if we're winning.
Just going back to over the last couple of years, we've been talking on the mailbag and talking about different people write in, comparing culture to your bandwagon fans, your fair weather fans, and the culture fans. It seems like what they've been saying is the team hasn't really made an effort to capture that culture, but they want to get that fast ticket sales. And, that's a good debate that they've been having. It's on social media. And, I'm a season ticket holder, so I'll be at the games. I like covering. It's a good dynamic with me and you as we can see it from two different angles and give you two different perspectives rather than, you go to a lot of shows and you hear, oh, well, this team did this. Well, it's easy to say that. You're in the press box looking straight down, but what's going on in the fans? What do they have on the menu? What's the problems that the fans have? And what's the best thing that the fans have? And we can bring that on this show.
Yeah, I think we even got the third point of view. So you've been in the stand. No, there's a third point of view.
Absolutely.
I photoed one of the Union games. It was the New York City FC game, NYC FC game. I photoed, and you're hearing the banter coming down from the fans. And that was a game they lost, and they lost pretty handily. They were beat 2-0, and they never really pushed. I wouldn't say they were in the game because the last goal was a late 90-minute goal, and it was a second half goal. But really, realistically, their offense was never in the game. They never really threatened. And I heard all the curses and the four-letter words coming down from the Sons of Ben, all the sections. So that's when you really, things kind of get blurred in there with Philly fans booing when you're in the stands, and same thing in the press box. But when you're actually on the field, it's all directed at them. And his players hear it, and they know.
Oh, absolutely they know. I mean, we talk off the camera and, off record that with the players, and hey, they hear everything, but keep in mind they're professionals. That's what they're paid to deal with.
Yeah,
they're paid to deal with their emotions on the field. But that's good that we put it in perspective, that we look at it from a bunch of different views, not just sitting here in the studio saying, "Hey, we watch it on TV and this is what's going on." But
let's look at their game that they just played this past Saturday.
All right, let's go.
9 times out of 10, you go to LA Galaxy, you pick up a 0-0. 1 point on the road in LA is always huge, but I think this team has dug themselves in such a hole right now in the standings that they're dead last in the East, dead last if you put every MLS team on top of each other. But when you salvage a point in LA, it's always a good thing, but I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me is the lack of goal scoring.
Right.
Is that you can play defensively, talk about the back line, talk about Blake getting a shutout, which was great, but really you looked at the possession. I remember a lot of times throwing out the possession up there. It was like 65%, 68%. LA dictated that game. It was more of a failure for them to score. It wasn't Union playing well enough to earn the tie.
Right.
It's LA lost.
So let's put our Philadelphia Union talk into two different segments. Let's put one, we'll take this game and isolate it, and then we'll talk about the game as it pertains to the season.
Okay.
So this game, look at it coming in. We always say, what result are you trying to get? We're trying to get at least a point on the road in LA. Historically, the team doesn't.
West Coast, too. You're playing out of your time zone.
Yep, exactly. West Coast, they got, a couple high-paid players. They're a team that's looking to get back in it. They haven't been playing the greatest this year. That's LA. They're looking to get back in a playoff mix, who historically start out the year cold, heat up at the end, and make the playoffs and make a run. So this year coming in, we figure the Union on not doing well, haven't won all year, looking, just not playing well to form. What are we looking for a result? Now, I was happy with a result. I see, they came in, had a couple defensive switches, started a different midfielder, a different look for the Union. Obviously playing for a result, not looking to set the world on fire with looking at maybe one goal, a 1-1 game, 0-0, and they came away with it. As a fan, I'm happy, but, that's just for the game.
Yeah, we're just looking at that game.
Right.
I'm happy, too. I was happy, and trust me, social media didn't treat me too well Saturday night. I said, well done, good game.
Hey.
Because you have to, as a coach, look at it game by game. If they're going to get themselves out of the hole, this may be the one thing that, hey, we've gone to the West Coast twice. They went to Vancouver and went to LA. Those are two hard places to play, BC Center and StubHub Center. To walk away with 0 goals again, I mean, putting a shutout on the West Coast on the road, that's an accomplishment right there. That's 2 for 2 against Western Conference teams on the road.
Right. And then, you figure you got, Giovanni Dos Santos, awesome striker.
You kept him off you kept him off.
Kept him off the board. I know, the fans are listening who really watch the game, diagnosed it. Hey, they got lucky, a couple bad breaks. And interesting, a double post shot hit the one post, came across the other, and came out.
I don't know if I even try. How many times I have to try to do that? What kind of spin you got on the ball?
It won't happen. But here's the deal. You left LA with a point, and that could be the spark. That could be the run.
Yep.
Okay, so we took that game in perspective. And, as for game stats, just like you said about possession, I think as far as 5-minute intervals, they might have had 3 times the whole game that they've had possession for 5 minutes. Better possession. Lost in shots. We're competitive in almost every category, but did not, I don't think, win any category in the stats. I don't think anybody had a great game, but nobody had a bad game. I think it was an average game all around for everybody, including, tactically and technically on the field. So that's out of the way. So the team came away with a point. So let's talk about it as a season.
Yeah, as a season. Yeah, that's probably what got me on fire on social media when I said, "Well done, boys." And you have to look at it from 2 perspectives. There's only so much you can do in the game. You can't fix the season in one game. And I think that's what a lot of the Union fans, they want it to start getting fixed now. And it's true that you have to get a win, and getting the win is the only way to fix the situation. You get one win, you get 2 wins, a win streak. Not getting a tie here and there, loss mixed in there and a win. But the 3 points are so critical because sitting on 4 points, and the closest team is Montreal, sitting on 7 points. There you go. There's your 3-point gapper right there. You got to start making up that ground.
That's right. And the playoff line is at 11 points. And first-year inaugural season Atlanta FC, who started out blazing, who cooled off of recent, they're holding the sixth and final spot in the East.
And that would be unbelievable. And you got teams like Chicago and D.C. and New England and Montreal. I mean, that's a logjam right there. And those are teams that I think the East is probably the most competitive it's been in years. And you can make a debate for, 9 teams you could argue could have a shot at the playoffs.
As of right now, you're correct about that.
Yeah, because they've only got a couple points separating. We're talking about goal differentials, how you're getting in and out of the playoffs right now. And that's what it came down to in the East last year. Union got in over Chicago, I believe, on goal differential, basically.
That's right. And as of right now, other than Atlanta FC, for the East, the teams who win at home will make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's a simple formula. And the Union are at home this weekend to Red Bull. I mean, if that's a game, you got to get up for it. I mean, you're going to fix it. You might as well fix it with your rivals.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's very good banner between fans. A lot of passion in the atmosphere. Fans going back at it, in a friendly way. But I think that with the coming off the result, I think the team should have a little spark coming back on the field, and it should be a good one. 7 o'clock. So hopefully the weather holds up. That's what I'm looking for. I think tonight they're calling for we're still a couple days away. It's a Monday. We got a Saturday game coming up. But it's still, calling for thunderstorms. It's that time of the year where it's, in Chester, Pennsylvania, anytime it could just, boom, there you go. There's your thunderstorm for you.
Yeah, so, very, very excited to see that get away. This is one of the Saturdays that if you're an MLS fan, you're treated to a lot because we've got the ESPN game at 3 o'clock. You got Seattle-Toronto, which is a rematch of last year, of the final. And you've got D.C. and Montreal 6, and in Union, Red Bulls 7, 7:30 Columbus in New England. So, it's an all-day event, and this is also in the time of the year where they're starting to throw those Friday night games on, and that's when, Philadelphia played one of those games a couple weeks ago. And I don't know, it's one of my favorite times of the year, like I said, because you got your European leagues on the weekend, you got MLS on the weekend, you've got Champions League, which will kick off tomorrow with Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, and that's a Madrid derby right there in Champions League.
That's right.
So, it's a very exciting time, and if we want to look forward to this Saturday, it's so easy to say this is must win, but it is must win. I think from here on out, every home game is a must win.
It's must win because the schedule. Let's face it, for the Union, it's not going to get any easier. They might get a couple easier games, maybe around. When it gets really warm out in end of July, that type of the year, that part of the year. But as of right now, it's a must-win just to get back in the pace.
Well, I think the reason it's a must-win is you have two things. Okay, it's a home game, and I also look at who you're playing. You're playing an Eastern rival, so you really have a chance to kind of leapfrog a team.
That's right.
You lose to a West Coast team on the road, or you tie a West Coast team. That's not going to really hurt you because it comes down to head-to-head trying to get in the playoffs. These are the games that can make or break you in the playoffs.
There you go.
So Red Bulls currently are sitting on 16 points. They've got 5 wins, 3 losses, and a tie. The only thing you look at for the Red Bulls, 1 win on the road, 3 losses. So, that's the only really thing that Philadelphia can look there. They're not good on the road, but we said the same thing about Montreal, said the same thing about New York, NYCFC, but as the thing is, you have to almost throw a lot of those predictions out the window.
That's right. And reigning Golden Boot winner, Bradley Wright Phillips.
It's fun to watch. Even though I don't like the Red Bulls, there's certain guys I like to enjoy watching and play. And hey, man, if Union win 4-3, you can have your hat trick, bro. So that's the thing. Is to me, I'm not even worried about the goal differential. Let's get the 3 points. Those are subplots. I think we're not good enough to worry about that goal differential thing when you're just trying to chase 3 points right now.
That's right. And just to balance out the rest of the MLS standings in the West, Portland remains on top with 17 points, looking good this year. keep in form, and followed by Kansas City. And the last team, the sixth-place team, the Vancouver Whitecaps, are holding it down, keeping Seattle, as of right now, below the playoff line. Still plenty of soccer left for the Major League for the rest of the year. We'll keep you in tune.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like LA Galaxy, I mean, this may be the year that LA doesn't make that second half run. I mean, coaching change, that's a big thing. Everybody keeps telling me, oh, LA Galaxy, they're a second half team. They always turn it on and get in the playoffs. But, I mean, they fell out of the playoffs last year to Colorado, and it's hard to believe that Colorado's even below them. So it's a very, I think that's what I love about the MLS, and I'm not just saying it because I'm an American and I'm supporting our league, but there isn't that predictability. When we look at EPL, last year was the only exception with Leicester. Besides that, you could write down 4 names, put them in an envelope, open that envelope in May, and you'd have a 1 in 4 chance of being right who's the EPL champion.
That's right.
I mean, that's what they call it, the Big Four. It's no fun. Anybody in the middle, you really tell them you're not going to win a league. Right now, LA could pull something off, get in the 6th seed, and win the whole thing.
And just for all the Everton fans out there who are like, well, my team's the 5th best team in the league.
Yeah.
I don't want to catch flack for it, but hey, I'm sure they're going to be at radio at worldsportshow.com.
Yeah, thanks,
or
man.
mailbag at worldsportshow.com.
Thanks, man. Well, that's the thing is you look at the European teams that you start playing for that 4th or 5th place so you can get in European football. For them, that's an accomplishment. Like a lot of people have been talking about, like Tottenham making their run this year, that to them to finish over top of Arsenal is something they haven't done in like 30-some years. So that is an accomplishment, finishing above your rival. So you have small goals. That's the difference in a non-playoff type of league where we have playoffs where it doesn't matter as long as you get in the playoffs. I mean, look at Union. They got in last year and gave Toronto a fight, and you never know what could happen if they won a game. You win that one game, everything hits the reset.
That's it.
But we do have a guest calling in a little later on the show tonight. We're going to have head coach Gary, I don't know, I've mispronounced his name, Curneen. Sorry, Gary Curneen, didn't have it in front of me. Gary Curneen is the women's head coach at California State University, Bakersfield. He is originally from Ireland, holds a UEFA A license and an Irish FA diploma. Also does a lot of work with NSCAA. He reached out to me a few weeks ago about doing some stuff in a DC area, which we'll talk a little bit about. He's the author of The Modern Soccer Coach in 2014, so definitely want to break down his theories and thoughts, and it's always interesting to get the perspective of a European coach coaching in America.
So basically, just for people listening out there who don't know what an A license means, is pretty much very high level.
I believe it holds a lot more weight than even the U.S. Soccer A license.
That's right. I mean, when you get to the pyramid of licenses, once you get to, your seed and your B, you have to wait and practice, and, you pretty much have to really know what you're doing, have ties at a professional game. You can't just, go. You can't fake it till you make it. We're getting these high-level licenses. These guys are the real deal. They know tactics. They know technique. They can school. We can be on hours on here.
That's why these guys write books.
Exactly.
It's like I can't just tell you. I'm just going to put it in a book, So I would have a loose leaf pamphlet.
Mine will be pictures, photos.
Here's a flyer.
Kick the ball.
It's one-sided.
There you go.
4-4-3. There you go. So, but it'll be interesting to get Gary's thoughts. And I'm excited to talk to him about some stuff that he's got going on here. To those of you listening in the Philadelphia area, Gary will be doing some work down in Bethesda, Maryland, coming up in June. So we'll touch on that and exactly what he's going to talk about.
And for everybody just tuning in, you're listening to the World Sports Show on WPPMLP Philadelphia. Charlie Flo and I'm John DeCrisio here. We just touched a little bit of MLS soccer. We got a guest calling in a little bit. Everybody should stay tuned. And you want to go kick some NWSL soccer around?
Yeah, let's kick NWSL. NWSL had a pretty exciting weekend. They just wrapped up week 3. Every team's now had their chance to have their home opener. I think the one that really surprised me the most, but didn't surprise me, is just how much they've just taken over the league. And I'm talking about North Carolina. North Carolina FC Courage with a 3-1 over Orlando Pride. The result didn't really shock me, just the way that they've been playing 1-0, 1-0 type of games. Now they're exploding offensively, so they've been known to be, Paul Riley is a very defensive coach, but then they showed some of their other cards that they can score.
There you go. I mean, leading the league on the standings, on the table.
3 for 3,
goal
9
differential
points.
+4 leads the league. They're back at it.
Yeah. Portland Thorns beat Chicago Red Stars by a score of 1-0. Not surprising at all. That's the Mark Parsons team. Mark and I spoke earlier today. We're in the works of getting Mark back on World Sports Show, so we'll update you guys when that happens. But no, Mark's a great guy, doing a lot of good work out there in Portland. It was a team that he got that was, Paul Riley's team. That's the thing, is a lot of these coaches, it's like a carousel. You're just about maybe 5 or 6 coaches in the NWSL that have been here since the start, but they've been with different teams.
That's right.
And they've changed up different lineups. They've used different systems. So I always look at it about a year and a half it takes for you to finally get your system in play.
I just noticed a trend here, and I'm going to say it. It seems like when players and coaches come on our show, they seem to win the next week.
They do. Yeah.
There you go. We can look back on it. I think our record's pretty stout. I'll put it up with a lot of other shows.
Players, too. Players have had good results. We had the goalkeeper for North Carolina on the show last week, Sabrina D'Angelo, and she puts up a 3-1 win.
That's right.
But what does it say? We did have a coach on last week for Orlando, too, so... So that's when you have the head matchup, it doesn't work too well then. But another one that really, really stuck out to me is another one of the Saturday games was Boston just handling Seattle. I mean, Seattle usually is pretty good on the road, but Boston, a team that finished in last place last year, they're coming out with results already. I've already got a couple wins already under.
They're coming out with a fire that we haven't seen in a couple years now.
It's the same thing that now they've got their coaching staff has kind of cemented themselves and kind of got the players they wanted. And you have a couple off seasons to, go sign players. And, we had one of their players then just 2 months ago, Amanda Frisbee, which I thought was a very smart signing.
That's right.
Players that I think were journey players like Angela Salem, couldn't really find a home, but very happy. I spoke to her earlier today, just very happy and having impact. And I think what it is they've got a lot of players that bought into their system. That we saw that. I think that Boston may be the Flash team this year. Flash was that team that just got into the playoffs. They bought into what Paul Riley was selling them. A little bit of a change, but I mean, you've got players like Rose Lavelle who had her first game, Megan Oyster who spent time with Washington Spirit. You've got some names out there that really pop as in solid players, and some players that really, kind of had, hard times establishing himself, like Amanda DeCosta had a hard time establishing herself in the Spirit. So I think sometimes you do that as a coach. You can find players that are kind of that journey type of players.
That's it.
That Tiffany Weimer, she was with Washington, tore her ACL, couldn't get back on with Washington, went and played in Europe, now back with NWSL and producing. So, I mean, hands off to their coaching staff because that's a challenge within itself. But Boston's not one of those. It's a big market, but, not a big market where players are lining up to play because, I mean, you have to deal with that weather and, I mean, you got other players like, I think, Julie King, which is one of the most underrated players in the league. So I think Boston, I would not be surprised if they snuck in as the 4th seed playoff team this year.
I wouldn't be surprised either. I mean, they're taking care of business at home.
Yeah.
Looking strong. They got that little bit of difference. They got.
That's a staple game that if you want to look back on the season, if Boston gets in the playoffs, that you look at week 3, what they did to Seattle. I mean, you just annihilated Seattle. I mean, Seattle's a team that's known to beat up on people. They usually are putting up 5 spots a night.
I'd say.
So, other game to look at is a Spirit loss to the Houston Dash, 1-0. So Houston picked up their win on the season. And then yesterday, Sky Blue had their home opener. And they beat Kansas City by a score of 1-0. So that's back-to-back losses for Kansas City, 1-0. But they're both road games. You go to Chicago and you go to Sky Blue. It's tough, man. It's tough when you lose those 1-0 games on the road. I mean, it's just one bounce and you win, one bounce you lose, one bounce you tie. It's just it's a game of inches. So, but I think the season's off to a great start because it's really hard to start really, saying this team, the only one that really you can say the number one team obviously is North Carolina. But besides that, it's kind of a log jam. Any team can win. Every team has won. I think that we're in a situation where we've looked at there's no offer type team that just can't get on the board. But teams are winning. Teams are showing up. I mean, granted, Washington Spirit and Orlando haven't won, but I mean they've tied some games, had some tight games. But every team's done enough to show that everybody's capable of winning, and it's going to be a tight race to the end.
That's right. And Gold Boot update for the season, looks like we got 4 players with 2 goals. Ohio for Dash, Nadim Portland, Rampino Seattle, and Dowie for Boston. All, it's going to space out pretty soon, but it looks like, a lot of shots on goal. So 2 goals in 3 games isn't bad, across the board. So hopefully the Golden Boot update will keep you here as well.
Yep. All right. Well, we've got a lot to talk about. Like I said, later on the show, after we take a break, we're going to have Gary Curneen call in. He is the head coach of women's soccer at California State University, Bakersfield. We'll have him on and break down what he's all about and talk about his book and his work. So I think we're going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. Stay right where you are. We are the World Sports Show. I'm Charlie Flo. He's John DeCriscio. You're listening to the World Sports Show on WPPM LP Philadelphia.
This is Denisha Adams, and you're listening to World Sports Show on WPPM 106.5 Philadelphia.
Last week on World Sports Show.
Phone line here. I'm going to build this interview up, give you a little background on it. The player we have coming on the show plays for North Carolina in NWSL. They were formerly the New York Flash last year, Sabrina D'Angelo. She also plays for Canada's women national team. Won a bronze medal this past summer for Team Canada in the Rio Games. Obviously won a championship with the Flash this past season in NWSL, so very exciting. Past 6 months really matter when you only win by 1 goal. A win is a win. So they're, it's only 2 games in. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but they're top of the table right now, sitting at awesome 2-0 with 6 points. The other team that's close to them is Seattle with a win and a draw. So they're sitting at 4 points. But I believe that we have Sabrina D'Angelo on the line right now. John?
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
Good, good. I guess it's nice to have a couple days off to recover and get ready for the next set of games.
Yeah, of course, especially after a tough game against Portland. A couple days off isn't bad.
Definitely. It's a long season, so, you look at it as a season's a marathon compared to the college season where it's all just a fast-forward sprint. But, you guys must be feeling good about yourselves. You go to Washington, get a 1-zip lead, then you face Portland. It finished, top of the table last year, and to be able to shut them out as a goalkeeper, what did you see, and what have you seen the last couple of games that helped you get that shutout?
I just think the style of play that we're continuing to play is very exciting. And, to go into a 3-back against Portland was amazing to see how well they did in the back and then the midfield and obviously the forwards. I didn't have a lot of work, thankfully, back there. But, yeah, they did a great job in front of me, and the shutout's just as much theirs as it is mine, for sure. I think you touched on it a lot with the communication. It's huge, especially as you kind of go through the different levels of play. And just making sure you're organizing your back line and making sure, because they're not only mentally exhausted, but they're physically exhausted as well, whereas we are not working as much as goalkeepers, so we have to be tuned in mentally and just help them out and organize them and tell them where players are running because we can see everything in front of us. So I think communication is a huge thing, and it was something that I got taught very young, and it wasn't obviously as developed as it is now, but it was just like the basics of left shoulder, right shoulder, and just telling the players where to move, and it's kind of developed as the years have gone on, and I think communication is a huge thing with goalkeepers.
I think another big thing.
And now, back to the WPPM studios in Philadelphia. This is the World Sports Show.
And welcome back to World Sports Show. Charlie Flo here with John DeCriscio. We have a very special guest on the line, Coach Gary Curneen. Gary, how are you tonight?
Good, thanks, Charlie. How are you?
Good, good. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So how are things out in California?
Things are good. We've got our last end of season banquet tonight with the athletic department, so it's a nice time of the year. Sun's shining, everyone's happy.
Yeah, I think as a coach, I really enjoyed the spring seasons because you're not playing for results. You're actually just being a coach. You're coaching. It's pure coaching. You're not worried so much about results. How do you approach the spring season?
Yeah, some of it's good. I would be on the side that that's good. Maybe without the pressure. I think we go from one extreme to the other. Really, we go from too many games to not enough games.
Yeah.
So a lot of I enjoy because in pressure you can tell a lot about people and a lot about teams, and you kind of get a sense of where you are, even though it's possibly out of everyone's comfort zone. But the spring is good. It's a little bit, more relaxed and allows players individually to develop. And I always think that we're probably about 5 more games short of really being honest with ourselves as to where our teams are by the end of it.
Yeah, I think the one thing I really enjoy about the spring is we had, at my school, we had about 14 freshmen, and we redshirted about 10 of them. And just to see their growth and development, I'm sure the same way. It's a big jump from going in high school and club to college, and that year can be a make or break for several players. So I think a big thing in the spring is just getting that first year under their belt, and then seeing them really develop into that spring season.
Yeah, absolutely. And then soccer as well has the disadvantage of kind of throwing them in at the deep end whereas basketball and spring sports have 6 months for them to find their feet. Soccer is literally in the door, and you're in a new environment, and you're being asked to perform, and you've been asked to work at a certain level without even unpacking your stuff sometimes. So it can be difficult, but once there's a lot more coaching, and once you take the pressure out of games, you coach in a different way as well. So maybe you're a bit more patient at times, and you give players a bit more opportunity that maybe you see that you should have. So I think from that end as well, I think the leadership end as well, that the culture side should always be a process too. So yeah, it's I'm split kind of, Charlie. We've gone difficult. Sometimes we've gone easy, and sometimes we've gone in between for our spring. So I don't know it's just trying to find what the team needs at that moment.
Yeah, we're the same thing. Is just getting the reps in there, and we started out with our worst gains were our first 2 games, and I think that was a blessing in disguise because it was a big wake up call because a lot of the players didn't take it as serious. They're coming off spring break, so you could see their spring break bodies showed up. So I think that it's you don't care about the result. I think you just want players to show up and play, and it was one of the games where we did a lot of bickering and fighting, because we played a junior college team and lost, and that's the thing is a lot of players kind of lose sight of it, that it doesn't matter if you're Division 1, 2, or 3, that we try to tell them every kid straps his boots on different. When you're playing a lower ranked team, they're going to play even harder because they're trying to prove that they should be a division higher. That's
right. Yeah. From my experience, some of the springs we've had that I've gone away thinking that was really good have ended up being really bad falls, and some springs that I've been really annoyed about have been really good falls. So sometimes, I was talking to someone last week, and they're like, I like to throw a couple of grenades in there in the spring just to see how people do. But we have to be careful as to where we throw the grenades, So it's like everything. It's I suppose time will tell, but yeah, just trying to get. I just wish we had about 5 more games, and I don't like the two games in one day setup. I think it's it can be hard physically. I think you then put the players at risk, but then you can't. Most teams don't have squads to do that. Then you're going from one extreme to the other in terms of your squad setup, because you're going from 25 players to 16, 17. So it sounds great when you're sitting in front of a paper and you're managing here. We need to play 10 games in 5 dates, but then it can be slightly different at the time. But no, it's good. It's good. I think we got a lot out of it, and I think the girls enjoyed it.
Now, do you find a decent amount of your players play summer leagues type of games at all? Or leagues, teams?
Yeah, that's something we're trying to do. We've just moved now from quarters to semesters. So we weren't getting out of school. My first 2 years here, we weren't getting out of school until mid-June. So it's too late for them to join teams, and everything's already started. So this year is their classes finish next week, so they're on schedule. They can join teams. They can get involved in summer stuff. So we're really pushing it. I would be a big fan of coaches players that can get on those teams and surround themselves with top players, and maybe from other schools, and maybe learn 1 or 2 things from how other people work. And there's just no substitute for for games, is there? So once someone comes in with 10 or 12 games under their belt during the summer, I think they put themselves at a higher starting point than someone who's, starting from scratch and has just been running all summer by themselves.
Yeah, we got about half of our players are going to be playing in PDL teams and different teams in different styles. I think that's the neat mix of it, and a lot of them will play each other, and I think that I really liked a lot of our players are doing that. They're kind of going in sets of 3. We've got about 4 sets of 3 guys that are going to about 4 different PDL teams in the Philadelphia area, and I'm pretty pumped, and it's just to kind of keep a tab on them and talk to those coaches and seeing what they're doing, and some of them are getting to work with their old club coaches, but I think it's just getting those reps, seeing different systems, because we're always adapting, we're always changing based on situation, a lot of teams, like our team, for example, we do a lot of situational formations that based on this situation, this is thing, and I think we get too many kids in America that are good at a system, and they don't know how to adapt, and I think we've seen that struggles with U.S. women. They're just not used to playing the 3 backs. We do it a lot. We'll play 3 backs, and we're very comfortable because we do it a lot, and I think it's just the getting that experience in the summertime is what they need in a different system.
Yeah. Oh, I'd extend your show for another 2 hours for a rant for I mean, if you're talking tactically about how players read it, I just think that it's too much cones have been set out and halftime team talks for them from that. There's I don't even think there's systems that call them formations. Yeah. So what they're just that they believe everything's set, and then they want the answer for a coach has told them at under 12 that 4-3-3 wins games, and that's just not the case, and then you're right, it has to evolve and it has to change, and sometimes it's you're playing not only on the field, but the resistance comes off the field because players have been told either by a coach at under 12 or under 8 that this is the right system to play, and we all know as coaches that any system can beat any system on any day. It's not the system, it's what the players do in the system. So I think that's coming more I've seen it in the past 5 years, where I think when I started coaching on the women's side, it was everything was 4-3-3 or 3-4-3, but now it's a lot different. And I think the boys, like 10 years ago, the boys became a bit more tactically are able to adapt, and it's still probably not where they want it yet, but it's getting a lot better.
I think a lot of it comes with coaching education. We try to spend a lot of our times in the classroom actually educating our players on the game. And I think that you probably would agree that that's a big thing, that we even push our players to go get coaching certs. We had a couple of our players get their D license, not D license, I mean our C, not C, your basic E license or your online F license. We push a lot of our kids in the winter to go online and just get your simple online F. Just get your F. Just get that piece of paper, because it makes it a lot easier to coach to somebody that understands the game. You could write 3-5-3 on the board, and it's just numbers to them, that they actually know their roles. When you say you're a 7, you're an 8, or you're 9, 10 years ago, you tell a lot of these kids that, they look at you and they just know forward, midfielders, and back. But now you can actually tell them on the field, you're now the 7, and they don't look at you like, what's that, coach? And you're not having to explain. And I owe it a lot to coaches educating their players. And I know you wrote the book Modern Soccer Coaching. What were some of the reasons you got into started writing about? Because you're always putting out your work out there. When did you start really starting to put it down on paper?
Probably to last call. I worked at Division 2. I was a head coach at Division 2 for 8 seasons. So probably towards the end of that, I started just doing blogs, and I always enjoyed writing, and I always enjoyed collecting information and putting it out there. So I did blogs for about 18 months, and then I just had the idea of writing a book, and because I saw coach changing. Like I was a collector of anything coaching I could get my hands on, articles, sessions, everything. I collected it, and when I started getting better, the better stuff I got, I was like, this is light years ahead of what I got when I was doing my badges. That was 5 years ago. So I started seeing a bit of a change, and I started kind of reading, just extending what I was learning through the psychology side of things and a little bit more sports science, and then by visits to clubs, I just saw that the ball was moving slightly different to where I was educated even as a coach. So I started writing about that there, and then the theme was just modern soccer coach. That was in 2014. Was just how the game was changing and how we isolated the different, the four elements were nothing new: the tactical, the technical, the physical, and the mental. There's nothing new that those are four big parts of soccer. But what I tried to get my message through there was that these all 4 points have to be integrated to a system now, and you can't just spend a whole session doing technical work and expect your team to perform at the elite level, and you can't spend all your time doing physical work and expect your team to get any better either. That was just I suppose the philosophy from it, and then I kind of built on it from there. We went to modern soccer coach into positional training, and then pre-season saw a lot of changes there, how pre-seasons were structured, and now how they are structured, and then the last one was pressing. So it's just a kind of theme, and it allows me to go and investigate and do some research and, I suppose, challenge my ideas and challenge my work, and it's gone from there, really.
Just remind everybody out there, you're listening to World Sports Show. We've got Gary Curneen, head coach at California State University's Bakersfield. You've hit a lot of those things. I read some things about you that, I always like seeing when coaches are a fan of a coach outside their sport. That I read something that, you're one of the guys you admire is Phil Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I was a big basketball fan when I grew up in Ireland, obviously, so I was, in the late 90s was all, Michael Jordan and the Bulls 90s team, the three-peat and all that there. So I was really into Michael Jordan, and then when I got a little bit older, I was pretty curious to see how he was managed and what was, how did a coach deal with him. And then once I started reading Phil Jackson's books, it was again the first coaching book I ever read was John Wooden, and that was a big one for me because it was just felt like it was the right way to be and right way to act and right way to hold yourself as a coach. And then Phil Jackson's book, it wasn't that far away from the time that I read it, and it was about, I felt that was the right way to deal with players. And again, the old school, Charlie, as you know, was rant and rave and they'll get it done, and all of a sudden there's this Phil Jackson who's working alongside these big egos and telling them, that they're sitting in locker rooms with closing their eyes and visualizing stuff. And yeah, it was again, I still couldn't do any of that to this day. I like to say my man management's improved, but I could never do the visualization stuff is beyond me. But again, just kind of looking at problems and trying to solve them as a coach rather than just reacting to them emotionally, which when I was coming into coaching, that was still prevalent in so many levels. Players underperformed, they were yelled at. Players didn't practice hard enough, they were yelled at. And it's got a lot better, but Phil Jackson and people like that, and the John Woodens and the Tony Dungy's of the world have played a big role. And I think soccer coaches opening their eyes up to better ways.
I think it's a big misconception we see in the coaching world. I talked about it in one of my coaching classes I took a couple weeks ago that the parents they want to see and hear the coach that they're paying for, and I understand. So it's one of those things where I think that the way when you're hard on your players, you ride your players, you push your players, and you're verbal, I think are trainings. So to me, game day is actually less stressful than trainings. In trainings, I'm trying to get it right for game day. Game day, I look at levels of control. Your level of control is a lot less in training, so I can't stop and correct you. I only got a few minutes between 45 minutes to talk to you, and I think that's soccer is probably the least coaching because, with basketball, which I think that it's different is you're constantly being able to pull your players aside, bring them off the field, throw them back on, take a timeout. You just don't have that luxury in soccer, and I think that's the most difficult thing. Is it's just a lot that's out of your control.
Yeah, absolutely, and then of course there is. And I think to me that's the genius of Alex Ferguson was that when you study him and you listen to first-hand accounts about how he managed, it was it wasn't all the nice hugs or the nice sensible talks. There was some kicks up the backside and there was some rants as well. And I think as a coach you've got to use all your facilities to try and get something out of your team or get your team to where you need them to be mentally. And yeah, it's really interesting. Like I've changed a lot in the past even 5 years as to what my thoughts are of pre-games and how much impact coaches can have. But I do believe, like I completely agree with you that it's changed where we've, the tactical information and maybe how everyone clapped and was like, yeah, come on, let's go out and do this. That's maybe those days are, slightly gone, especially at the college level where you're doing pre-game meetings and you're doing sometimes an hour, 2 hours before the game. So there's no point in getting everyone pumped up before they've got to spend, 45 minutes warming up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned you got to save the certain speeches for certain times. You can't always give them the same hurrah speech. They've heard it. They've been there. They've done that.
Absolutely. Yeah, my college coach we knew as soon as we lost the second game of the season that we knew that we were getting "You've let me down, boys." And it was all I've done for you is the nice locker rooms, and we still felt bad. Nobody dared laugh or dared giggle, but it lost its effectiveness after junior year because you're like, oh, he's going to give us this one now. So yeah, as a coach, you're just always looking, aren't you, to try and keep them guessing and have players, and what works for one doesn't work for others, and that's where I'd have been guilty as anyone years ago, where I'd have ranted and raved during training sessions to try and drive intensity, but you do pay a price for that sometimes as well. Sometimes the quality drops, and sometimes what rises intensity for 5 players drops the quality for another 5. So it's just I suppose the biggest thing is just learning your team, and learning what pushes different players' buttons and learning what motivates different players. And I think once you drive into that and delve into that world, then you're putting more into your coach and you're spending more time, and it becomes a lot more fun, and hopefully you get a bit more out of it as well.
So I want to remind you, everybody out there, that you'll be on the East Coast in the D.C. area in June. What are some of the details you can share about that?
Yeah, we're doing a couple of clinics, coaching workshops. One is in D.C. on June 10th. So we're going to be with Maryland United. We're trying to bring in a good crowd of about 8 coaches. So we're looking at 1 or 2 MLS coaches and trying to get some NWSL and college coaches and club coaches in, just on different theories and different views and sports science, sports psychology, systems of play, youth development, and just a little workshop and try to get people to engage as well, and the local coaches in the community. So that's something that I've moved into about 6 to 12 months ago to try and, I'm up some of my, you talk about coaching courses, and I got so much out of coaching courses, but probably in recent years I got more out of one-day experiences and spending more time alongside coaches. So just offering that there and trying to get it started.
I want to thank you for your time, Gary. We'll definitely put that out there and look forward to actually seeing you at this sessions down in June, and we'll update all of our listeners on our social media where to find information on that. But again, thank you for calling to the show, Gary. Really appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks, Charlie. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
That's Gary Curneen, head coach of women's soccer at California State University's Bakersfield out of Ireland. Like we said, he's got his UEFA A license. That's about as high as it gets. Not about, that is the highest it gets in the coaching world.
Very good interview. I mean, you could take a lot from that.
And we could have been on here for another hour with this guy.
Absolutely. The one thing that I take right away is different players. Not every player is the same. Not every person.
Yeah, that hurrah speech only works for 3 of them.
So the base, when we have the good coaches on, it seems like they're hitting the point where you got to be able to adapt to your players. The players aren't going to adapt to you. So
all 18, all 11 of them. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges in coaching, that you can teach as much coaching course you want. You can read up how to talk to the team, how to talk to individuals. And some individuals need that assistant coach, because I think you also have to look at it as not just the head coach, but, you and I, we serve different roles. I'm an assistant coach at a university. You're a head coach at a high school. So each of us wear different hats.
That's right.
And we each have different roles. There's times where, hey, in coaching meeting, you're going to ride the players hard this week. You're going to be the bad guy. You're going to put the arm around these players that had a rough week and work with those players, because you got to work with their personalities. Because even at the pro levels, feelings and sensitivity. It's a big part, the mental part of the game. Players know when they've lost a big game, and I'm a big, I really hate when coaches yell at players when they get pulled off in the game when they know they've messed up. They know they've lost the game. They know they're getting pulled off. You don't need to remind a player of what they already know. And luckily, the staff that I work with, nobody does that to those players. But I've been on coaching staffs where it's like that. It's like, yo, dude, he knows he just cost the team the game.
Yep.
But I almost look at the 24-hour rule. Let the players soak it in for 24 hours and let them think about it.
That's right.
And ask them what they would have done different. Not the moment, because they're going off raw emotion.
Right.
And you can't also be too high on the players that win, too, because you can't let that go to their head to the point where they're expecting these things to happen every game. Because, you put in 3 goals this game, you may go through a streak where we see these stats where, Wayne Rooney hasn't scored in 10 games, but he had 5 goals in the last 3 games. How does that? It streaks, and that's just the game itself. It comes and goes. It flows. It's like you can't even track it on a flow chart, up a player's head. So remind everybody out there, this is World Sports Show. I am Charlie Flo. He's John DeCrisio. You're listening to us on WPPM LP Philadelphia. So definitely a great show, and looking forward to putting out the information about Gary Kern when he's here on the East Coast. I mean, I love it because he's going to have MLS coaches, college coaches, NWSL coaches, that a collective mix, of pros, men and women, that we all have different types of personalities. I coach college, you coach high school, so it's you coach women's high school, and I coach men's college, so it's a lot of different variables that go into you and I's what we can do with our players mentally and physically.
Absolutely right about that.
It's
a matter of getting to know the players, and then again at our level they are still student athletes. So
yep, you just hit the nail on the head right there.
We're balancing their school schedule, their abilities on the field, and it's a balance because other than unlike professional and upper levels, is we have a certain amount of time where we could actually coach. So it's we have to be there, and have to get in and make our point, and
yeah. The chances of you and I making one of our players go pro is very minimal. But, it really hits me when I say all these players are going to go pro. And it sounds so cliche and corny. You see these commercials at NCAA. They're all going to go pro in something. But it's true. You're getting these kids prepped for being a good citizen, a good student first in grades, because that's what they're going to do the rest of their life. If you've added something to their life to make their life better, then you've done a great job as a coach. So, I mean, it's definitely, like you said, the biggest thing is a balance, is balancing out, the student athlete. And I think that's why coaching college is much different than coaching pros. Coaching pros is, these are the best of the best of the best. And I think they've kind of weeded their way out that they can adapt to different types of coaches. If you're a good player to a certain extent, a coach can make you that much better, but you as the player have made yourself that much better.
That's right.
So, I mean, but any other final thoughts on the night at all, John?
Yeah, that's a good call. Everybody out there listening, you are listening to World Sports Show on WPPM LP Philadelphia. Check us out on Twitter, World Sports Show. I think it basically every form of social media. Check out World Sports Show. Charlie Flo here. John DeCrisio, another good show.
Yeah.
We'll be back next week, 9
we
p.m.
got some
to 10 p.m.
Trip I'll be doing down in Turks and Caicos May 24th, so we'll be starting up a collection drive. Check out our social media for that. I'll be collecting goods to go down to. I went down to Turks and Caicos February 8th to work with their football association down there. Took a bunch of goods down there, so I'm definitely looking to get used boots, new boots. That's one of their biggest demands is boots. They need boots and gloves.
Not boots as in snow boots as in soccer shoes.
Thanks, dude. You brought me the ski boots. I'm going to Turks and Caicos. What I'm going to do with the ski boots.
Ooh.
I don't know why that accent came out. No, but everybody listening out there in Turks and Caicos, cannot wait to see you guys again. I got some special friends in Turks and Caicos listening right now. Can't wait to get down there and do some coaching down there with the kids down there. And they'll be taking on the Bahamas when I'm down there. So, wrapping it up, I'm Charlie Flo. He's John DeCrisio. We'll be back next week.